So I've been giving this video a lot of thought over the past few days, and I've been trying to think of a way to properly explain what I think about this game using solid reasoning and not just my feelies as to why I think this game is simultaneously like amazing, but also like a massive pile of shit. Now please, as I'll say with all of my what went wrong videos, keep an open mind with what I'm saying and try to take in my points before saying anything or indeed disliking. Just hear me out. I don't like to be 100% negative with these kind of videos that I make, so I may as well touch on the things that I did like about the game. I think the scale is incredible, despite the fact that the universe doesn't really work the way they said it would. Like, you can't go from one star system to another, you have to go into the galaxy map, and you do go through loading screens, I don't care what the fuck they say. But the scale is still insane. I mean, despite how shallow it is, there is a lot of content, if not the most content. Naming things is pretty cool as well, and you know this channel, so I've been having a lot of fun with that. The quick and easy flight, I think, was the best thing about the game and made such a good basis for its potential. Just being able to get off a planet and go to another one so quickly was really cool, frankly. And, you know, the flight controls, although not particularly robust, were simple enough that anyone can use them. And the soundtrack was really good as well, and I think that overall it fitted the pretty not so bad aesthetic that the game has going for it. The graphical fidelity really leaves a lot to be desired, especially with the pop-in, but overall the art style is pretty cool. I like how vibrant the colours are sometimes, and when you do get a nice planet, it is nice to see when you finally get one. So this game may have been the most hyped game fucking ever. I've seen a lot of people talk about this game as if their life literally depended on it being good, and while this may appeal to some people, speaking for myself, I can't say the same. And frankly, that's a damn shame. This isn't even down to self-hype and the game not meeting what I thought it would be. Okay, right, it kind of is, but it's more about the game not meeting the minimum requirements for a game, let alone a game of this nature. This game is really strange. It somehow managed to be simultaneously full of content and yet utterly barren at the same time. When thinking about this game and the video I wanted to make on it, I'm sure you're all aware by now I like to go into depth, pick out problem mechanics and systems, talk about why it's bad. So I thought for a long time, what is it that makes this game bad on a mechanical level? And I couldn't think of anything. And then it dawned on me, there isn't anything. Obviously, games are designed to appeal to different audiences, such as people that are looking for competitiveness or people looking for a more social aspect. No Man's Sky is, I assume, supposed to appeal to people looking for an exploration-based experience. Much in the same way to Skyrim or Fallout, you know, those games' main appeal is in its exploration. Unlike these games, however, No Man's Sky does not reward the player for exploration nearly enough than it needs to. The biggest problem is that No Man's Sky is essentially empty and each planet is really only different on a very superficial level. In fact, most solar systems are basically the same, about 3 to 5 planets, 1 space station where you can trade, and rarely an atlas anomaly. As I've said, most planets are basically the same and genuinely do feel like colour swaps. Every planet always has the same few basic elements, which I understand is needed for gameplay purposes, but each planet will also have some kind of biggish tree type thing, or like a mushroom, a little sprinkling of shrubs, and like a few weird doggish animals or whatever. Never anything especially interesting or unique. And I genuinely mean this when I say that I've been to planets that really look almost identical. Now, sure, I mean, not every planet needs to fucking look different and spectacular, but when you've only played the game for a few hours and you start seeing, like, these things keep cropping up, it's really kind of disheartening. So, the animal AI is also, like, nothing. Although I suppose it would be difficult to demonstrate complex AI systems, they don't really seem to do much other than just kind of fucking wander around. Animals don't, like, herd together, and you don't see animals hunt, really. Well, apparently you do, but I've never fucking seen it, and if you do see it happening, it'll just be like one animal just kind of fucking jumps on the other. I mean, that's what I'm going to assume it's going to be like. Not only this, a lot of the stuff that we've seen in the trailer has been confirmed to be cut. There is no desert canyons, or sand planets, giant sand snakes, or massive alien ruins. And straight up, I've not seen any sauropod dinosaurs, I've not seen any pictures of any, and if anybody has seen any sauropod dinosaurs, fucking hit me up, because I'd genuinely like to see one. Like, this isn't even like being kind of passive aggressive, like genuinely if you have a picture of one, show me, I'd like to see it. I do want to say this, if you enjoy this game, then that is great. Seriously, if you are genuinely getting a good experience from this game, then you're clearly a happier person than I am, and if this appeals to you, then you're going to have a good time. I suppose. However, I would argue that there was no reason that this game couldn't appeal to both people that literally just want to go about and look at things, and people that would want a deeper experience with more rewarding gameplay. So let's break it down then. As I've said, the main aspect of this game is exploration. However, as a game, I feel that this can only go so far. Mindlessly jumping from one planet to another with nothing happening can only capture the attention for so long. In regards to it not rewarding exploration, a good example of this would be to use Fallout. Most places you go, you will find things. You will get a quest that takes you new places, interesting structures, lots of varied new items, NPCs, handcrafted visual storytelling. The games are alive and busy, and funny or cool stuff can happen, just from going and exploring an area. Hence, the game rewards exploration in a big way. The problem with No Man's Sky is that each planet is very much the same, and there is almost no need for any exploration. And given that every planet looks exactly like the rest of itself, there is no reason to go beyond your initial landing zone, or much further anyway. Granted, some planets may have like 1 or 2 uncommon elements on it, but they don't really mean much when you only need the elements to make warp cells to really progress in the game. There is no need to go and explore a cave because there won't be any new outlandish material at the bottom of it. There won't be equipment or a quest or fucking anything. The only reason for exploring it is to just see things, but most planets are pretty uninteresting, so there isn't really much to see most of the time. And given that going to new planets doesn't even change the gameplay in any way, like with no different gravity or the weather systems really fucking doing anything, it's just yet another thing that just limits the amount of gameplay in this game. There isn't really a simple fix to this problem either, which is a shame. The game would need to be vastly expanded with usable items and upgraded elements in order to get the most out of this. But at the very least, I feel like some kind of quest system would help, meaning that people have an actual reason for going and doing things. And also maybe making it so that planets would hold different elements according to different geographical location, maybe based on height or something. Just something so that going to a new place on a planet, such as down a cave or up a mountain, actually involves a reward for the player, because at this moment, the game is literally just gathering items to move to the next solar system, and all those items are within fucking like 2 meters from wherever you land at any given point. It also doesn't help that in what must be at least 15 hours of gameplay at this stage, I've seen one, yes, literally fucking one planet that looked even slightly like anything cool we saw in the trailers. Sure, it could be down to being immeasurably unlucky, but is that how a game should be? Should I be expected that most of the planets I go to look almost exactly the fucking same and just be barren rocks? Understand that, sure, most planets in the universe will be that, right, but seriously, at least fucking something different once in a while would be nice, at least one interesting planet system, surely. Moving on, the survival elements of this game are lacking massively and end up just becoming a fucking annoyance, which I'll get to later, right? The mechanics of this, or lack thereof, involve mining for a red element to keep your life support system online, and that is literally it. Seriously, is that what constitutes for a survival game nowadays? Like, there's fucking nothing. The effect of the weather and ecosystems that have on each planet goes as far as changing the colour of an overlay on the screen border. At the very least, it would have been nice to see the weather play more of an effect on what you can or can't do. Maybe you could craft items to help you get through certain weather conditions, something like that, like an umbrella. The game was marketed to be a survival game, but really there are zero survival mechanics present. Like, I just don't understand how people can constitute this as a survival game. Like, come on, it's fucking nothing. It gives the illusion that it's a survival game. Think of it this way, the game constantly has you recharging your suit, boosters, and gun with red elements. However, the game also throws infinite amount of these elements at you, so having to charge any one of these things is just a fucking annoyance. Instead of a thought out choice that has an actual consequence, it's just busy work because you always have red material, and that's why it isn't a survival game. It would be like playing Dark Souls, but you're always getting poisoned, but the game chucks a million purple blossom at you. So, because you have so many, it doesn't matter, and it becomes less about finding a blossom or using one or getting to a bonfire before you die, and more about just press square every 30 seconds. Funnily, if the game had better exploration, this could actually translate to better survival. For instance, say you could only land your ship in certain areas. Okay, just as a hypothetical. This would mean that you have to go out into the wild to find things instead of just land anywhere, right? Hence, you need to explore, but also be prepared for the hazards that await you. More hazardous planets could yield rarer materials. And in addition to this, I feel like more predatory animals with different abilities would have been nice, and another thing you'd need to look out for. Now, you might think, well Tony, this means that people that just want to walk about and experience now have to deal with gameplay. And sure, but judging from the Metacritic scores, most people want to see fucking some sort of gameplay. And please tell me, right, if you already enjoy this game, do any of my ideas that I've mentioned and will mention seem like a good thing? At the very least, this game could have had an exploration mode and a survival mode, kind of similar to Minecraft. Also, can someone please tell me why people compare this game to Minecraft? Like, aside from mining, there's like fucking no resemblance. Like, that's it. Like, how do people think that this game is anything like Minecraft? As of right now, because the game's main focus is like 100% on exploration, as opposed to like a mix of things like I'm suggesting, when you do need to juice up your life support, all it feels like is a huge annoyance that just gets in the way because it doesn't take skill or thought or strategy or planning to do it. Why do I need to manually do it? Just take the fucking resources if I have it. Or, at the very least, let me do it in-game and not having to do it in the fucking bastard menu. The inventory management problem plagues this game. Early game, you have barely any inventory space, so I always feel like I'm running out and having to shuffle things about between my suit and ship. Frankly, it seems 100% unnecessary to have a spaceship cargo and a personal cargo when you can just freely switch items between the two, as long as you're close enough to it, obviously. So all it does is just involve a bunch of useless fucking micromanagement, and this is coming from a guy, right, that loves micromanagement, but this doesn't aid the gameplay in any way. It's as if it's there to give the illusion that there's more gameplay than there actually is. It doesn't help that the ship and suit upgrades take up a precious slot which could be used for items, so you're basically punished for upgrading anything early game. My solution: maybe give the ship a much larger cargo hold, just off the bat, that you can't switch between, so you need to make like trips back to load it up. That could work. Or give the suit a much larger cargo hold, or, which makes more sense, to just be able to keep everything in the suit and just give it a larger storage capacity in general. If we go with making the ship have a bigger cargo, split the ships into cargo capacity and upgrade slots. This would make more sense, I think, as well, and give more variation and risk reward to the ships that you want to like acquire. Do I want a slower ship with a bigger hold and shields, or a faster one with more room for weapons and upgrades? The same could be applied to the suit, but you could make it even more robust by maybe changing the upgrades to be specific to body parts and allow different suits to allow for different amounts of slots in these areas. But just give me a bigger fucking storage capacity, because ultimately all it does is just waste my fucking time. Now let's be fair, inventory management isn't a bad thing at all, but only if it actually adds to the gameplay, such as a game where the mechanics involve the player making meaningful choices about what they're carrying, like an actual survival game, funnily enough. This is probably why Demon's Souls Encumbrance was scrapped late in later games, because it simply just doesn't add anything. And this doesn't add anything to the game either, it's just literally an annoyance. It's not implemented in any way that makes any sense or any fun. Really, making choices between upgrade slots and inventory isn't a bad idea in concept, like not at all, but the way the game works doesn't really facilitate this very well. You don't pick up a few key items where each item is important and you need to think about what it is that you're doing. The game encourages you to just stock up on everything to sell, which really conflicts with the excessively limited inventory. Because of the piss-thin survival mechanics, you need to gather a lot of resources to use to keep your suit and ship working, which leaves you with very little wiggle room for less needed things. Yes, granted, you do gain more inventory slots over time, but that does take quite a while, and frankly upgrading your ship doesn't really seem that necessary, because they're all basically the same, so the only reason for a better ship is literally for more inventory space. So while we're on the subject of unavoidable annoyances, the combat in this game is abysmal, and it feels very, very tacked on. Again, to make it seem like there's more of a game that actually exists here. I'm certainly not against combat being in the game. I actually think more combat in some ways would really help the game, but the mechanics are just so clunky. Most of the time you're only going to be shooting the little floaty robots. And the problem being that the camera is so atrociously slow, even at 100 in this game. And on the console, the auto aim just isn't right. I can't explain it, but it's just wrong. While we're on the subject of wrong things, I have seen nobody give any mention to the fact that you can be shooting sentinels, etc., and then have to go into the menu while you're being shot at to recharge your gun. Like, who in their right mind thought that was even semi-acceptable? Like, what the actual fuck? How is that such an oversight? Was this game even slightly tested by anybody? Because that is the fucking first thing that I'd have been complaining about. I'd have been like, get this shit changed now. This amounts to an incredibly frustrating experience because the robots attack you for fuck all, right? Like, I do not get why they're attacking you, right? So you mine some plutonium and then they attack you, so the game punishes you for doing what you need to do to progress, essentially. But then again, there's so little to this game that I suppose the devs needed some reason for them to attack you. Again, if the shooting was more enjoyable, it wouldn't be so bad. Having only one gun doesn't really play to the game's strengths either. If there were lots of unique guns that done unique things, it would give players more of a reward for exploration. Just don't think the upgrade system in its current form feels very satisfying, as it doesn't really change the way the gun works all that drastically, and it's a very different experience from finding a whole new weapon or even crafting one. You know, maybe have more unique weapons. Borderlands done a procedural weapon thing that would have frankly suited this game pretty well. Now, space combat is equally terrible because you're forced into first person cockpit view, which is really fucking frustrating. It would benefit massively from third person. Not only this, your turning speed is so fucking slow, even when you're in the spaceship as well. Hence, if you're fighting two ships and you turn to shoot one of them, it's basically unavoidable to get hit from the other. Again, more spaceships, weapons and utilities would have benefited this massively, and a third person view, and maybe not have the ship feel so, like, weirdly unresponsive. Like, I just don't get it, like, ugh. Anyway, my solution to this would actually be, you know, obviously make the gunplay more enjoyable, but in terms of, like, just getting attacked off these stupid robots, this is again something that where if the game was a lot deeper and more expansive, which, I mean, sure, it would have needed a lot more, like, people in development time, but, you know, really, something the game should have had is like different ways to play the game. So if you're a trader, you get attacked by pirates and there's your combat there, or you could be a pirate and attack other traders, etc. Or you could just be like a non-aggressive explorer type thing, or a fucking bounty hunter or a mercenary, or something like that, where the combat could be integrated with going to different planets, but you also have like more of like a kind of immediate goal attached to that as well. I mean, that seems like the obvious solution to me, but I don't know. I suppose the last thing to mention about this game, and yes, I've literally covered basically everything in the game, believe it or not, is the space stations and NPCs. Each space station you go to is exactly the same, with very little variation, which only adds to the repetition and the boredom one may face while playing. The NPCs are also immeasurably boring. They can only be found in space stations and in the random structures, and all they do is give text-based story elements, and maybe a little reward like an upgrade or some material. The problem with this is it doesn't aid in the exploration feel, or, you know, even having the player uncover a unique story to tell. Everyone's experience in this game is exactly the same. They went to a planet, they mined, maybe saw a fucked up animal, went to a little space hut, got an upgrade, and that's literally it for everybody. And not being able to meet NPCs out in the field or see alien cities, or at least alien villages, or anything like that really shows the limit of procedural generation. It can give you a lot of very basic things, but I don't think the technology exists to even have any of these ideas that I've mentioned happen in this procedural world. Everything I've mentioned could easily be made on a handcrafted map, but not so much with this game. Nobody will have a cool story like, oh, I went down a cave and saw two guys fighting over a map, etc. Which, in my opinion, is a far better example of good exploration rather than I visited 10 planets that were all the fucking same. So why is this necessarily bad, I hear you say? Being boring is pretty subjective, and this is probably the most subjective point I have, but really, can anybody say the NPC's interaction is as how they would imagined it to be? They just feel like a painting or a statue, just something to be interacted with rather than a creature or a person to meet. It doesn't aid in what I think the game is trying to accomplish, and really only takes away just due to how predictable it is. This is only made worse by the fact that you interact with NPCs in exactly the same way as you interact with a fucking stone monument. You interact with it, you get some text, and you get an item. I mean, basically big rocks are NPCs in this game, and I'm not even exaggerating, like, it's literally the same exact interaction. There are plenty of static NPCs in games that work fine. I mean, even Dark Souls NPCs are fairly static most of the time, and they work fine in the game. So, I'm actually not done yet, right? Okay, so, the UI is really fucking bad, right? Whoever thought using an analog stick as a controller for a cursor for a console game can go drown themselves in their Grand's runny shit. I don't need to explain why that is bad. Design for the system, you fucking idiot. Especially when you use a grid-based system and then entirely miss the point of using a grid-based system on a console game. Also, the icons to show the stats for guns and spaceships are meaningless. Like, it might as well be in Chinese. Like, how is anybody meant to decipher that fucking circle with 3 bars that go around it that have zero indication of what they do? Literally zero. And as a final thing that I just want to say, see the fucking milestones that pop up every 30 fucking seconds that letterbox the screen and make it impossible for me to interact or do anything? Please let me turn that off. Please. After giving it some thought, I watched the trailers for No Man's Sky to see what it was exactly that people were expecting, and then it dawned on me, like, 2 things. So, like, context and feedback. Context because we see Sean piloting his ship and shooting other ships as if he's supposed to. For me at least, I would have assumed that there were an actual reason for doing this. Did he pick a side in a big conflict? How would this affect the game? It looks like there's a war going on and you can decide how it unfolds. We're never actually told this, but much like a film, you wouldn't expect to see something and have it literally not mean anything. But in reality, the game doesn't do this. The ships are just there and fly about almost purely as a visual thing only. They're there to make it appear like there's more than there actually is. So I think a very, very interesting point to make is, I think along with a few other sources that say the best part of No Man's Sky is right at the start, and aside from the fact that the game gets repetitive right around the point where you get to your 3rd solar system, the first 2 hours of the game actually has you working towards a goal. You need to repair your ship, then you need to make a hyperdrive, etc. It's actually pretty cool, and it's a nice way of rewarding the player getting the hang of the systems, but past this point, the novelty of 18 quintillion, it just dies off like really fast. I know that I don't only speak for myself when I say that I enjoy goals. I mean, I would even say that a game needs goals as one of the things to even define it as a game. Given my own personal definition of a game, I would describe No Man's Sky as an activity. And that's okay. If that's what you want, I understand that getting to the centre of the galaxy is technically the goal, but I would argue that the end of a game is different from an overall goal or objective. Take GTA for example, you need to complete a series of missions and goals in order to get to the end. Or take Fallout as an example, like, a lot of people do miss the main story quest, but then they just go exploring, and the way the game works, they might find side quests or be able to make their own goals and stuff, but right now No Man's Sky just doesn't have enough content to really be able to make your own goals, and that's a shame, honestly. So, this brings me to the end of my video. I was going to have a section where I discussed things that I wished was in the game in more detail, but I find that that's kind of pointless, as it would involve changing the game so drastically. Maybe if this video gets like 1,000 likes, I'll make a what No Man's Sky should have been like video, but for now this is what you're getting. Hopefully it's not been too whiny or too critical for you. I do kind of get passionate and maybe ramble on a bit, but that's just how I am. It's part of being Scottish, almost. But yeah, I hope that the points that I made sense and were relevant, and hopefully, like, you know, linking it back to games design fundamentals, at least I'm trying to, and hopefully it came across that way. It kind of puts a bit more context on overall the arguments that people are trying to make, I think. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, obviously like it and subscribe, because I'm going to make more of them. They're a sort of very long running series, hopefully, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.